And hi, everybody. Today it's July the 1st. Happy Canada Day to those of us who are celebrating in the diaspora. And we're thrilled to have Moshe back with us to give us an update. Moshe has been our Israel companion throughout this time and before. And it's great to check in with you, Moshe. And you need no introduction. All I want to say is he's available. He's available for if you're if you're going to travel to Israel. You could do no better than to engage Moshe, and and let's hand it over to you now, Moshe, and
בשמחה.
everyone enjoy. Okay, very good.
Okay, shalom lekulam. Good morning. Good evening here in Israel. It's 5:31. I mentioned my girls, my wife, and my twins are out at Shavua HaSefer. Shavua means week, Sefer means book. And this is the week in Israel where they're selling books outside of the malls and in the streets. And this was supposed to be a week and a half ago, but because of the war, they had to postpone it. But I always remember it, even for years. If you've been to Israel during this week, it was always a very festive week in every city and every town. They're selling books, so that's a pretty amazing week. And hopefully, my girls come back with nice books. David, thank you for putting that topic and questions up in chat. I don't usually see the chat too much because I'm showing a presentation, it's on the side. Please remind me towards the end. I'm going to try and talk about at least some of the things you brought up. Saying that, I put together a presentation, but I will make sure to have enough time to address a few of those things at the end, talking about the settlers and what's going on in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, what's going on in Gaza, and a couple other issues you brought up. So thank you for that, and let's be in our way. I'm just going to change the setting here so I can. There you go. So, חברים יקרים, חברות, friends. What a dramatic few weeks we've had all over Israel, all over the Jewish world, the supporters of Israel, all over the world, Israel as a country, as a people. Over the past few weeks, there were a lot of ups and downs, but I have to say, Rabbi, I said this to you a couple days ago when we were discussing different ideas, and we always have this pre pre-session discussion. I do feel more optimistic than my last conversation with you a couple weeks ago. We had, I did a kind of like an Israel update, and we did some other topics throughout the year. But I think we're in a very interesting time right now as far as where Israel is going or may be going, hopefully with some agreements, hopefully with at some point ending the Gaza war, coming out of Gaza, trying to slowly get back, into the borders of Israel and Syria as well. We have troops in Syria right now. I'm going to touch that. I'm going to talk on that. Obviously, we won't be able to do everything. But more than anything, I want to give you a taste of, again, an insider's view. I'm not an expert on geopolitics. I'm an educator, I'm a tour guide, I'm a Zionist. I'm Jewish, I'm a son of a conservative rabbi. And more than anything else, I'm a father to two wonderful girls, twins, Shai and Carmi, that are going to be 3 years old in just a couple days. We're celebrating on Friday here in Beit Zayit in our Moshav. I say that because to put it in perspective, for me at least, most of their life they've been going through war, right? Or at least a big significant part of their short life so far, they've been going through a war. And as parents, as Israelis living here in this really weird, intense situation, it's different. It's different than what I had 6 years ago before I was married and before I had kids. And it's different right now. So I'll try and bring in my personal story and through that talk about Israeli society. And obviously, I hope to leave you with a taste for more. I know this is your last session, so I'm honored to be a part of that. But let's see if this is going to work. There we go. Before we do anything else, just very quickly, say with me I did this with you in the past. This is my friend Etzion from Kibbutz Yavne, who from day 2 or 3 of this war, from October 8th or 9th, he started this thing where he sends all over the world to this website on the bottom, www Sfira, which means counting 710, that's October 7th.com. And this text, mostly in Hebrew, but also translated, and say it with me. Today is the 634th day, which is 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days in the darkness. May it be God's will that our loved ones be protected and rescued from those seeking to harm them, and may they return quickly to their homes and families in peace and health. Amen.
Amen.
And it may seem a little bit like Sfirat Omer that we do from Pesach to Shavuot, and that's the idea. But this is not called Sfirat Omer. This is a Sfira, accounting Michoshech, from darkness, Le'or, from darkness to light. Hopefully seeing the 50 people, live and not alive, come back to Israel, to their families, to burial. The picture on the bottom over here is the picture of the Ohel family, Alon, their son, which is not in the picture. You probably heard his name. He's like a pianist, and maybe he's famous not only for his music. He was in the Nova Festival, just like Hirsch, and just like just like Hirsch, Goldberg, Poland, and just like Aner Shapira. He went to a safe room, which is about a mile away to the west from the Nova Festival, trying to flee the area. The missiles were raining, were coming down that morning, and the sirens didn't stop. They went into a safe room on the side of the road, parallel to the entrance to Kibbutz Re'im. He was taken hostage with others. Hirsch was also taken with him, and Aner Shapira, who was throwing out grenades, 8 of them actually, that were being thrown in by the terrorists. He managed to save a few people that remained alive. But like I said, many were killed. I think the number is 16. And some were taken hostages. Why is Alon's story very important, like any other story? But he's the only one left in those tunnels, in that specific tunnel, as far as we know at this point, from the people that were with him for a very long time. That everybody but him was brought back in a deal. He's chained. He's chained like an animal. He has a shrapnel from all those grenades that were thrown in from October 7th in his eye. So he's lost sight in one eye apparently, and this we know from the rescued from the deals of bringing out some of the hostages that were with him. And he's alone. He's alone. So it's not only the physical, it's the mental. His parents put pianos all over Israel to remind people to play the music and to remember their son Alon Ohel. So that's just one story of Alon, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we will see him come home to his family very soon. Before I start anything talking about June 13th, I want to just bring us up to date, and I chose a few important dates here, so that would really bring us up chronologically to June of 2025. So it all starts on October 7th with 1,200 Israelis killed, 251 hostages. 50 of them are still in Gaza. At that same day, Hezbollah is already firing towards Israel, and that fire will be intensified, becoming more and more intense as far as the battles of Hezbollah throughout the year. And late 23, towards the end of the year, that's when we have the first ceasefire. 105 hostages are released in a deal and brought home. And in April of 2024, and very important, we are now in Gaza, starting at the end, really a little bit more than a month after the beginning of the war. Our troops are in Gaza. Yes, they come in and out at different phases, but soldiers on the ground in the Gaza Strip, not in the Gaza envelope, not on the Israeli side, but in Gaza, to put pressure on them, to get the Hamas to target them, and to try and get at some point to a deal where we could get our people back home. In April of 2024, and I know I'm skipping, but this is important to what we're going to be talking about, talking about the 12-day war that we had in June. In April of 2024, Israel assassinates important generals in Syria and Damascus, important generals of Iran. And the retaliation to this is a bombing of hundreds of missiles and drones all over Israel. I have to say, as someone that doesn't have a safe room in his home, again, having kids and a wife and being in a moshav where most of the houses don't have safe rooms, it was a very scary moment Well, many moments. We just went downstairs to our neighbors below us. It's a two-flight villa, two stories were on the top, and the house was shaking for about a half an hour from the interceptions above our head. We tried to get our girls watching something on our phone, and we sang with them. It was very, very scary. The next time that the Iranians shot at us with their ballistic missiles was in October of 2024. That was following another target assassination of Hania. It was like the political guy in Hamas. And we've known that name for so many years, one of the heads of Hamas for so many decades, for so many years, I'm sorry. And he was taken out by Israel, Iran, and that he was in Iran. We basically shot through a window somehow with some kind of missile. Still don't know all the details. Maybe it's good that we don't know everything. He was killed in Iran. Again, hundreds of missiles shot towards Israel. We know right now through the Israeli TV from this week, there was a big documentary, and I realize you're watching with the rabbi and on yourself a lot of different documentaries from Khan 11. They have amazing footage and amazing programs of documentary. One of them this week was not Khan, but a different channel. They talked about 2.5 million Israelis. That's a quarter of the Israelis that do not have a safe room. So I'm one of those people. We're a family, one of those 2.5. So what do you do? I'm not talking about not having a safe room. I should be more accurate. They also don't have a shelter, a miklat nearby that they could run to in the amount of time that you have. That's a problem. We see what one missile, 53 missiles landed in Israel, even though we intercepted the vast majority in this past war with Iran in June. But still, a lot of people don't have the safe room. So that's, a very intense situation. At the end of 2024, a dramatic change in the war with Hezbollah and Israel signing a ceasefire agreement. That doesn't mean that Israel doesn't go in every now and then with drones and airplanes trying to get an organized group of mechablim, of terrorists, trying to shoot towards Israel. So if we see something like that, the army, if the army sees something like this, or intelligence, every now and then you do hear about the attacks. You don't hear about Hezbollah too much anymore. They're regrouping. They're trying to assess the damages that they had and to rebuild their power. Maybe it's also deterrence at this point. And that brings us to June 13th, really, when Israel launches the preemptive attack. Before we go there, that's just the chronology. And I am going to try and look at my clock here on the right to make sure that there's enough time at the end for questions. Life before June 13th, and specifically the 6 months before, the fighting in Gaza continues. The operations extend into Syria. Syria broke down into pieces, after a very long civil war. Now it's Ashara Jolani that's in charge there, a guy that was, a very extreme Muslim terrorist. Yes, he was a terrorist, but now it seems like he has different intentions. That we'll see with time if if he changed his skin, as you say, if he is going to change the way he reacts towards Israel. It very well could be that very soon we're going to sign a agreement, maybe not a peace agreement, but some kind of agreement with Syria and Lebanon, which is, wow, like who thought that could happen in the past few decades? We'll talk about that very soon. Demonstrations were something that you hear about daily, weekly, mostly Thursdays and Saturday nights, not only Tel Aviv, all over Israel. My mother, my sister Orly, in front of their community down south in Meitar, every morning are out there with pictures of specific hostages, for the hostages to be brought out of Gaza, for the war to end and to make a deal to bring them out when they're, at least those 20 that we know that are alive at this point, or we're told are alive, to bring them out. So that's been going on constantly. I have to tell you, again, I'm Moshe Gold. I have my opinions. So you know a little bit of, where I'm coming from all our sessions together. But I think it's important to say, just like in the US, when people ask me, so what do the Israelis think about this or that? Gadi and myself, okay, and here I'll be very straightforward about my thoughts, right? Okay, because Gadi is a good friend of mine. He has different opinions than mine. And I feel like I have this conversation with a lot of people. What should we be doing right now? Should we get out of Gaza and sign an agreement that the war is over ceasefire, give us all the hostages, right? Use maybe the successes against Iran and, go for this. I'll be very honest. For me, the answer is yes. I think Hamas is always going to be here. We're not going to be able to kill every Hamasnik. As far as deterrence, a lot of the Gaza Strip is destroyed. I don't say that with a smile. I feel not good about people that are suffering that are not terrorists. If they're not, terrorists, then I can't decide that by looking at their face. But I think there's also a point where you have to say, what's my end goal? Like, where am I going after the war? Because when wars end, you have to take advantage of successes. We hurt Hamas a lot. We hurt the Gaza Strip a lot. Now, what do we do with that? Right? I'm not saying that war is success, don't get me wrong, but where are we going? What's the next step? I think at this point, we have to assess and understand that Israel is not a country that wins or wants long wars. The 6-Day War, the 12-Day War of Iran, all these short wars, the Yom Kippur War, we were surprised, but that was like 3 weeks. When it's a long war, it's not good for our society. It's not good for our people, for our reservists, for us. My friend Gadi says, Ma pitom, what are you talking about? Now we need to crush them. Now we need to show our enemy that this is it. This is it. Or you drop your weapons and do this and that and leave the area and whatever. Basically, he wants a total, taking out all of the Hamas. And this is our chance in history to do that, even that if that means that people in Gaza are continuing to suffer, even if they're against Hamas. I'm saying people that are not Hamasniks are suffering from this greatly, as we all know. So this is a conversation. He says, with all due respect to the hostages, we'll bring them back after. And 20 people that are alive and 30 that are not alive, compared to what we're teaching the terrorists, we're teaching them that we're going to negotiate with them, and if they kidnap and take hostages, we're going to give them whatever they want. This is a discussion that's happening all over Israel. Where is it not happening so much? And I know this from my nephews. Inside the reserve units in Gaza and Syria, all over Israel. And my nephews have done more than 250 days of reserves. They're in their 20s. They study in university. Some of them are married with kids. What does that mean, 250 days? What does that mean for your wife, for your family, for your husband? Sometimes in some families, it's the woman doing reserves. It's a huge price, knowing that some of us are not doing reserves and not serving in the army. So this is where we're discussing it in society outside of fighting, but reservists are not talking about that apparently. They're looking at everything that they can agree on, which is we're fighting for the state of Israel. They come out from reserves and they're disgusted because they're like, did we not learn anything from pre-October 7th? We cannot do this senseless hatred. Let's agree to not agree about specific things, but we're all Zionists. We all care about Israel, about the people of Israel, about being moral and all that, about it, being a Jewish state with minorities. We can agree on the basic things. Let's not get into agreements during this war. But that is what's going on in Israel right now. So fighting and arguing and discussing the hostages and the end of the war in Gaza is a big thing. But I want to talk right now on one of these secret missions of a special unit. I won't even say the name, that goes in with the Shabak, with the Israeli secret forces that go into the Gaza Strip, and they get bodies out of Gaza. How do they know? And this happens again and again. Just like with this man in the picture in front of you in the center with his wife, Yair Yaakov. Yair Yaakov, that was a successful covert operation recently, recovering bodies from Gaza. He's from kibbutz Nir Oz. A quarter of that kibbutz was either murdered or taken hostages. When you catch terrorists, you can, there's units that interrogate them to find all that information of like, where exactly are these people being buried or hidden inside the Gaza Strip? That's how we're getting them back. Why are we not seeing so many live hostages coming back, right? Because it's very clear that Hamas is saying, and this is people that came back in deals, hostages are saying, they're saying to the hostages themselves, if we even hear the noise of soldiers coming near, we're going to put a bullet in the head of every hostage that's near us. We saw that with the 6 people that were killed after 11 months being hostages. One of them was Hirsch, if you remember that. He was shot by his guards when they probably heard, that's what we were told in the news here, when the guards of Hamas, those terrorists, they heard our army coming near. Up until June 13th, those are the main issues. It's about what's going on in Syria with a little bit of our army going in to make sure that no terrorist organization is going to do the same thing that happened in the Gaza Strip. So they made they went in a few miles east from the Golan into Syria. I'll show you that in a map in a moment. The demonstrations and the talk about getting back the hostages. And obviously, this whole Iran issue, which is not only about the nuclear plants and enriching uranium, but it's also about the ballistic missiles. They currently, in the beginning of this war, apparently had anything between 2,000 and 2,500 missiles. But it was said from our intelligence that they were going to make thousands and thousands of more missiles in the next few years. The plan was up to 11,000 missiles, which could really destroy a big part of our country. Think of 10% of them not being intercepted. That's 1,000 missiles that can be shot and hit Israel even less. We saw what one missile does when entire buildings are pretty much taken down. What happened in my life and the life of tourism as a tour guide, I could tell you that many of my friends have left the job of being a tour guide. I say this with a sad face, but hopefully they'll come back at some point. One of the reasons is not only the war, but the effect of the war is really, not having flights anymore. And when you don't have flights, you can't come. People really want to come on these solidarity trips. They really want to have a bar mitzvah in Israel. Honestly, we hear the booms from Gaza where I live, if it's really quiet in the evening, but you don't really feel the war in Jerusalem or in Tel Aviv you don't. We did during the Iran period of the war. We did during October 7th and a few other days, but you can come as tourists to Israel. People are even visiting the Gaza envelope. But so many of our people are leaving tourism. Restaurants are closing. Masada, only part of it is open as far as the shops that were there. Shops and hotels connected to tourism are shutting down. And that's because without the 4 million tourists a year that we had before in 23 and 22, you build all these hotels, you have all these new tour guides, where are they going to get work? So I was lucky to get a little bit of work. If I had to assess, I did 25% of what I would do in a regular year in the past 2 years, which is very sad and very difficult because, I'm trying to reinvent myself. Obviously, you know about my prints that I'm selling of Israel. I'm a photographer as well, so I'm lucky I have that, and I do some Zooms. Still, it's not only the money, which is a big part of it. You want to bring Parnassa back home. But tour guides are people that want to educate. They want to be outdoors. They want to go out there. They want to teach. We love what we do. I'm hoping that this is going to change very soon. I could tell you specifically me that in June 14th, right, a day after this started with Iran, all of my summer was canceled. And I put at least like 6 months in creating those itineraries with a lot of different families. So it's very sad. But I'm still smiling because I'm optimistic. I think things are going to come back. I think it's going to change for the better. I'm no analyst of the situation. I'm just looking from what I'm learning from people, they read from and from the news and from other Israelis I'm talking with. These two groups are from New Jersey. The guy on the left was stuck here. His name is Mark. He was stuck here right before the missiles started coming down from Iran. He was touring with me on Thursday in Tel Aviv. We had a great day. We did volunteer work, packing food, Hostage Square, all kinds of amazing things. We also went to the Carmel Market. So it was fun, it was meaningful, and then he was stuck here for an entire week, and he was really worried and scared because, who prepares you for hundreds of missiles coming down and the siren doesn't stop? He eventually managed to get home through Jordan. The group you see on the right is also from Southern New Jersey Federation, and these are people that came as a men group. The second day they were in Israel, they basically, the Houthi Yemenites were bombing the Ben Gurion airport, if you remember this, and they got stuck in Israel. Basically, they were told your United flights are canceled for a long time and you'll have to find a different way to leave Israel. So they were like not happy about this in the 7-day trip. They ended up finding a solution of going through with a different airline going to Greece and then out of here. But uncertainty. You don't know. You're going to come to Israel at least before a few weeks ago. You know, what is going to change in the next few hours, a few days? If they're shooting at the airport, what else can happen? That's part of the problem. You plan things and then they're canceled again and again. On June 13th itself, and I'm going to move forward here, 3 in the morning, I get this message with this on my phone with a siren that sounded not for missiles, but the message is basically saying that you should listen to Homeland Command because there is a significant threat of Iranians that are going to shoot back because, and this was in the original message, because of a preemptive attack of Israel over Iran. For the weeks before this in the news, it was always like, this is coming close. Is it really going to happen? Is America going to join? And it suddenly happened. And this was Thursday night going into Friday AM. And we wake up and I say to Vered, our girls are sleeping. Let's get a bag. Let's pack it as fast as we can. We don't have a safe room. Let's call our, people from the Moshav and see if we can join them, because that's what we did on October 7th, but the other times they weren't home. Can we use their safe room? They weren't able to take us. It was too crowded in their safe room. I basically packed. Vered was still waking up. We got into the car. I have to admit, there was a little bit of a conversation there between Vered and myself. She was like, no, but man, it's not going to be so big. We can intercept the missiles. And I said to her very quickly, I said, Vered, look, let me make the decision now, and let's exaggerate what we need to do because we can't take chances. Last time we were under an Iranian attack, our house shook for a half an hour with missiles overhead, interceptors, and some of them falling. Scariest evening of my life. That was April and October of 24. We go to Or's house. Or is her friend that lives in Mevaseret Zion, 14 minutes on Waze. I've never been to her house. I drove pretty fast. Our girls thought this was like a little trip. We made it into an exciting moment. They were covered with blankets and we took them to Or's house. In the next few hours, we were in a safe room because again and again and again, sirens that morning of Friday, and that's still June 13th, when we're at Vered's friend who works with her, and we went to their safe room. It was not clear what's going to happen, but Vered says, let's go down to your sister's house. We go down to my sister's house down south. I go for like literally 7 minutes back home, and 7 minutes of quick packing. I didn't want to be caught in this place without a shelter. And I packed for Shabbat and for whatever, just threw things in a bag and immediately drove back to Or's place, took our girls and drove down for an hour and 15 minutes to a place called Sansana where my sister lives. And we stayed there until the end of the war, until the ceasefire. We slept in a safe room. That was a totally different experience to be able not only to have a safe room, but with babies, with toddlers, to sleep in a room which is a safe room. So even when there were sirens, the girls, it was already like they thought it was like interesting. People were coming into the room in the middle of the night, right? Because there was a siren, but we were already in the safe room. That's how we experienced the next 10 or 11 days. Ladies and gentlemen, the people we're not talking about when we talk about that Thursday night going into Friday, the beginning of the preemptive attack, we all talk about the 6-day war, attacking Egypt on the ground, all the airplanes, all the Air Force, all that, and how that gave us the advantage. This preemptive attack was because of these people. They are the people. Now, yes, you're not supposed to see their pictures. You're not supposed to see them because one of them on the left has only like a first letter for her name. She's a pilot in the Israeli Air Force. This woman is married to a navigator in the Air Force. Both her and her husband, and this was in one of the newspapers in Maariv on Shabbat, both of them were fighting in that preemptive attack. Grandma and grandpa were taking care of the kids, which are already used to the fact that their parents go every now and then and do their avodah, their job. Now, the guy on the bottom, maybe it's hard to see. I'm going to try and make this. This is a UAV that you're seeing. Unarmed, vehicle, airplane vehicle, which apparently was able to, come with those airplanes right after them and or a little bit before them, some of these, and really take out all those systems of anti-aircraft missiles that were awaiting our Air Force F-16s and our Air Force F-15s and F-35 and stay there for the next 10, 11 days until ceasefire to be able to find every missile in Iran, at least mostly in West Iran, that is going to be targeted towards Israel, hunting future problems like those missiles that could be shot towards Israel. These are the real heroes that we're not really talking about so much, but that's just part of the story. So I'm just going to move this down for a second, and then, um, oop, slicha. Okay, hopefully that's better. And then on the right, on the top, I hope you see what I mean. You can see the Mossad fighters, Mossad, RCIA. It's for a reason that you're not seeing the faces. They flew drones from within Iran. They've been there. This is not necessarily Israelis. It's people working for the Mossad. You probably know this from the news, but think of these people. They never get the glory. They never get the kol hakavod. They are there shooting, flying drones to target, assassinate nuclear scientists, to go towards these systems that are trying to shoot down our planes with drones and marking different targets for our Air Force. So that Shabbat continues with Shabbat evening. By the way, I did all the cooking for Shabbat when I got to Shira, my sister's house. I'm the youngest of four. I said, Shira, I need to cook. Let me cook Shabbat. Because I was like, it was a lot going on. So I made Moroccan fish, and I made a quiche, and I made soup and all kinds of stuff. Kept me busy. The girls were playing around with Shira, my sister was actually a kindergarten teacher, so that was very helpful. Nobody was allowed to go to services in shul. People had services in homes, like shtibel, little shtiblach, like you do sometimes when there's rain or whatever. Or during COVID, we did this. But they went to houses in the community that I was in that had safe rooms. So they would be safe even if a siren started. The sirens start in the middle of the night again and again and again. And I think for the first time that morning of Shabbat, on the 14th of June, we hear about people that are not one or two, but people that are killed, people that are injured. And you understand that not everybody has safe rooms. And you understand that if the missile hits too close to you, even if you're in a safe room, you can be injured and even killed. This became the real deal that we were worried about for so many years. So many people are going to their parents' homes because the parents have safe rooms. If they live in a better, nicer house than the young couple with the kids. So the entire community where I was staying, a lot of the young couples weren't there for the whole entire 11 days or 12 days because they went to their parents' house where they can have their kids sleep in a safe room. So I want to just continue this and just tell you a little bit about our daily life. There was a joke in the family that every time I went to Meitar, which is near San Sana, where we were staying over at my sister's house, Meitar's where my parents live. My dad's going to be 87 in a few weeks. My mom's a few years under him. And I used to do a walk with my dad every morning for the physical, but also for the neshama, for the nefesh, and some quality time with my dad. Every time we left the door with Moshe, there was a siren. So that was the family joke. Don't go on your morning walks. But, we almost like got used to it. When we ran into the safe room, or I shouldn't say ran, when we walked into the safe room, because you do have a few minute notice, here's what we found. And my other sisters, that's my sister Orly on the left, my parents are sitting on the backside of the picture over here. And with them on the left, there's a guy with a purple shirt. It's my cousin's son from LA. He couldn't get back home. His mother was like freaking out. She was really, really worried about him. He ended up going with his university, Yale, through Jordan to Europe and then back to America only a week after this started. The two guys leaning against the wall on the right are both soldiers in the IDF. The one closest to us is my nephew Guy, who is serving in Gaza as we speak right now, defending the American company that's giving out food to the Gazan people there. Not a great job, but he's already more than 250 days in being in reserves. My kids that you can see on the right, my girls are sitting in front of this beautiful view. We would sit every morning. I would get my coffee. They would dip a cookie into it. We would talk a little bit. I'm an early bird. I rise earlier than my wife. But there's no school. There's no gun. There's no kindergarten. Students that are supposed to do tests for university, that's not happening. People that are trying to leave Israel go into this travel chaos. All these birthright that you see on the right, birthright people getting on a boat on a ship called Mono Cruise, and there's maybe you saw this on TV, but they throw a party on the ship on the way to Cyprus to get a flight from there back home. So it was a little bit surrealistic, a little bit weird to me that they're like, oh, let's have fun on the boat. It's not their fault. I'm not blaming Taglit or Birthright, but this is thousands of people that were, again, stuck in Birthright, including my friend over here on the left with that light blue shirt, Yael. She's trying to get them on the boat and get them out of Israel to Cyprus, then to the US. As far as the travel chaos, it's also people leaving through Jordan or through the Sinai Desert, through Egypt and Sharm el-Sheikh. But is it smart to go into an Arab country, a Muslim country, when you're in a war with other Muslim countries? So yes, we have peace with Egypt and Jordan, but a lot of Israelis were saying to some of the tourists or whatever, this is something that came up. Maybe it's better to stay here a few more days until flights start again. It may not be the safest thing. Thousands of people left through Jordan, thousands still left through the Sinai Desert and Egypt. You got to understand this is probably the most, and I was a combat soldier in the army. This was scary. Having kids, you know this better than I do. I'm a young father, young as far as the number of years that I have kids, almost 3 years. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of months, right? I have a little bit of life experience. This was scary because we realized that when a missile does land, and missiles did land, we saw interceptions above our head in this place called Sansana where I was staying, and there was no siren for us because it wasn't coming to our area. Only the area where it's going to land gets a siren. But then you see some missiles are not being intercepted. When it lands, look what happened in the Soroka hospital, about 10 miles from where we were staying, capital of the Negev, Beersheba. This is where I grew up, by the way, in Beersheba. And look at what happens to the hospital. This could have been our 9/11. This could have been I'm just comparing the number and the size because the most of the hospital, most of the wings were evacuated a day before June 19th. June 18th, they're taken underground to these areas that are prepared in advance for exactly this situation. The missile comes down from the sixth floor all the way down. It could have been hundreds of people that were killed. Nobody was killed in Soroka, thank God. This is one missile. And it happened two more times that Beersheba in the Negev was shot at. We don't know about the army bases, air force bases, and other strategical areas that were shot and hit. Usually that's censored by Israel. But when they shoot into cities towards a hospital or when they shoot towards buildings in Tel Aviv, a lot of people are getting hit even if they're in the safe room. Beersheba probably did not have enough protection. I'm not sure that Beersheba has the top priority when a lot of missiles are coming down because there's all kinds of areas around Beersheba that are also very, very important. So what do you do when you don't have enough intercepting missiles? Is that a fact? Do we have enough for 2 more weeks of fighting? I don't know. Let's just say that people were very worried about this issue. Life continues. My girls go to Shira's, my sister's gone, to prepare for next year. There's no gun, so they're preparing and they're playing alone in the gun. And they're having a great time. They say like 3 times a day, Azaka, Azaka. And that's their game that they learned at Gan. Azaka means siren. They have to like run into a safe room. But what they did, we built a tent for them inside the living room, and they called everybody to come into the tent whenever they said Azaka. So they actually thought it was a lot of fun. My mother's over here on the right, having some quality time with my daughter over here. So I think this for my parents, especially, that went through a very difficult time. Hope it's not too personal to say that, but it was very hard for them. That's why I went every day to walk with my dad because it's hard. It's hard. You live. My dad like explained to me, like he said, most of my life I lived in the States, and I brought you over to Israel. And he says to me in one of our walks, was it a mistake in 1977 to bring you to Israel? Was it a mistake? Is Israel going to be destroyed? Should I have stayed in the US? And we're just, he's brainstorming and discussing, but he was very frustrated. And we'll get to it in a moment, what happened when America joined the war. And I'll tell you about my dad's reaction. But I want you to understand that people are continuing life. Even with all of this, when a missile hits on the left, a building, the builders coming to do the shiputzim, to the renovations, put up a huge flag. And my sister, the one standing on the left with the purple shirt in the middle picture, is creating this flower decoration for a chuppah that evening. She does this for free. She's like a real tzaddik, my sister. She's amazing. And at the beginning of this wedding that happened during the war, it's like, family of my sister, even though they're not family, they're best friends. They said right before the chuppah, if there's a siren, families, Cohen, Levy, and whatever, Gold, you go into this house nearby. And because they did it in their community. But they had a solution for every family where they're going to go if a siren started. They had a wedding during these very tense times. So that's something that continued happening. I have to say that as far as Israel and Israelis, we did feel some unity. Again, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. It's not like Am Yisrael Chai was in the streets singing and whatever. Yes, some people were really helping each other. And I feel like the vast majority of Israel was like, with this understanding of October 7th, when someone says to you, I want to kill you, I'm planning to kill you, I will kill you, you have to have a preemptive attack and make sure that you're not handing your throat to him. Then there's people like one of my sisters who says, this was a huge mistake. Why did we go into this? Why are we doing this? We're endangering everything. We're endangering our soldiers. We're endangering our country. I'm not going to talk about agreeing or disagreeing. I'm taking her as an example for her reasoning. And there is reasoning. People were very worried about this war. She felt like, and I'll say this because I think it's important to hear this other side as well. Some people were saying Bibi's doing this because he's trying to get out of his trial. He's trying to get out of the balagan, the mess that was created on October 7th. He's trying to get a win before, he leaves finally off, before the end of his regime, or his, not regime, his being prime minister. Zemanien, it's interesting, but this is something that we heard around us. I do have to say the vast majority of the people I met, there was this feeling of unity. Some were saying this was the wrong thing to do as well. And I think it's important to voice that as well. When U.S. Joined, if you remember, Trump was saying within 2 weeks we'll make a decision. Do you remember that? And we're like, what? We know that David's arrow, that's the name of the missile that hits the ballistic missile from Iran outside the atmosphere. And we know, because we know this from the news, we don't have enough for another 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Of course, they're not going to say that, the army, but there were all these hints. They kept saying in the news, oh, don't worry, we're not in the red line of intercepting missiles. Oh, that really makes me feel good. We're using red line, right? What does that mean? You don't really have enough? So on Sunday morning, when the U.S. just, sent the B-2s and threw down on, those bunker ruining missiles over those different nuclear sites, Fordo and Isfahan and Natanz. My father comes running into the safe room. He says, Moshe, come outside. I go outside. My father's in tears. I say, Abba, makara? Makara? What? Ma? Right? So he was very, very emotional. I take after him. But he was very emotional. He says, it doesn't matter. He says, my dad didn't vote for Trump, okay? He, for the first time, he says, I felt so angry that we're alone and nobody has our back. And he's telling us we have to wait 2 weeks. And now that America is on our side, or took a side, not only took a side, but did something physically, I just feel we're not alone anymore. And I feel, I grew up in America. I needed this to happen for my, I love America. This is my country. This is where I grew up. I can't explain the words, but you understand, people were very emotional. People were very emotional. People were very emotional in the first week of October 7th when Biden, back then, 2023, October 7th, October 8th, 9th, 10th, he got on the news, and he basically said to Hezbollah, don't get involved. He used the word don't. And people were moved about that. So I'm not comparing the two things and what the Israelis think about Biden and what they think about Trump. America did something for us, for the world, for themselves, whatever you want to call it. Was it a mistake for America or not? That could be discussed in America. For Israelis, we started breathing again. We started breathing again because the strongest country in the world was helping us out in making sure that our existence can continue. The War of Independence was a war of existence. This, I don't know if it's correct or not, but people here felt this could have been a war of existence too, if a nuclear bomb actually, if they get their hand on a nuclear bomb in the future. And this was a way of assuring that they're taking a stand on this. So you saw the walls of Jerusalem, I didn't mention, colored that night, Sunday evening, with the flags of Israel and America. A big salute from Israel to America. At the aftermath of this war, we see that 10% of the missiles, the ballistic missiles from Iran, actually hit Israel. We have dozens of buildings in center Israel and in Beersheba and Air Force bases and other bases that we're not really talking about that were hit, right? But 90% we were able to intercept. Thousands of Israelis were injured, a lot of post-trauma. 29 were killed, some of them, 5 of them in the last day, even after the ceasefire. Right after the ceasefire, 7 a.m. Israel time, on the 24th, a missile was shot towards Beersheba, and on Iranian side, of course, many casualties, many injured as well. If we continue, we're coming towards the end of the session, so I will try and take those other questions and thoughts. But on June 24th, the ceasefire starts. We're like totally in shock in Israel. But we're told it's going to happen, and at 7:05, a missile comes down in Beersheba, and 5 people are killed because a missile went through their building. Some of these people were in their safe room. They were still killed. If it hits close enough, that cement is not going to help you. That day, and this is the 24th of June, we were told that Gan would start again the next day. Kindergarten for our girls. We go back to Beit Zayit where we live. Girls go to Gan, and we wake up the next morning. First day they're going back to Gan with pictures of 6 out of the 7 soldiers that were killed in Gaza in battles there. This is combat engineering unit that were killed. Back to reality. Israel is real. Over the past few days, really the past week and a half, Israel's really discussing what is going to happen in Gaza, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We're talking about how is that going to affect ending the war or not ending the war in Gaza? How's that going to affect the hostage situation? Can we get them out in a deal? And of course, also a lot of discussions about Prime Minister Netanyahu, right? All these comments by Trump about that people in Israel didn't necessarily appreciate so much. He said something about Bibi's trial, how, you have to cancel Bibi's trial. Israelis, right and left wing, were like, hey, we're a democracy. Please don't, this is our country and we'll make that decision. We still have a system here. But overall, super grateful for America, super grateful for this brit, this covenant, this relationship that we have. I think Israelis are beyond appreciative about this. And I do want to mention just now, because I'm looking at the watch, but at the clock, a big thing that's going on right now in the news today, because I put together this whole presentation, and then I had to change a lot of things because every day things are happening. And Bibi's coming on Sunday, apparently, to meet with Trump. And what's he going to be talking about? What they're saying in the news is there's going to be discussion about the Gaza situation, maybe about the hostage deal, about how to get there with Trump, with Witkoff, with the Israeli team that's talking to Qatar, who's talking with Hamas. Hopefully, secretly, they're coming to some kind of formula. And also about Syria and Lebanon. Look at the map on the right. This red color over here on the right is the area where Israeli soldiers are, just east of the Golan Heights. We have a security zone where Israeli soldiers, after Syria collapsed, right? Assad is now in Moscow. the Civil War ended, our soldiers are a few miles, few kilometers inside Syria to make sure no terrorist organizations from those some of the dangerous fractions that were fighting each other in Syria would now point their fire towards Israel and have a 2nd October 7th on our northeastern border, which is Syria. So the deal they said today would be if we have a deal with Syria, we're not going to be able to eat hummus in Damascus. It's not going to be peace. But the deal is going to be that we're going to have to leave the red part, which is east of our border in the Golan Heights, bring our troops back to our fence and defend from our fence. What will probably not be left by the IDF, even if there's a security agreement or correspondence between Syria and Israel, the Hermon, the top of Mount Hermon, as a strategical point. In Israeli news, they're saying, and I know news is not always what happens, but they're saying we're not going to leave the Hermon. The fact that we're even talking about Syria, the fact that we're even talking about Lebanon, these are big things. And that's where I want to start, bringing up a little bit of the positive. I know there's huge issues happening in Israel right now, but Israelis are back to breathing again. I don't know for how many months or years it's going to take Iran to go back to where they were before the war, as far as ballistic missiles, launchers, nuclear plants. But Israelis are breathing because they understand, A, we're not alone. B, we have a fantastic army. We have a fantastic people, and nothing is perfect, but we got through this. There's a saying in Hebrew, Am hanetzach lo mefached miderech aruka. The eternal nation is not afraid from a long journey. It's a long journey, but we dealt with this. There's still huge issues going on with the Gaza Strip, with what's happening there, with what's happening with the hostages, and with our government maybe having elections in the next few months. So things are starting to bubble up again with Netanyahu. And, is Netanyahu going to strive? Is he going to want quick elections to take advantage of the success of the 12-day war against Iran? He's getting more in the polls in Israel, more percentage of people are voting for him. So a lot of mixed feelings here, even with people that didn't vote for Bibi. But I will talk about this in a moment, everything that's going on in the West Bank. Look, there's a lot of things are happening. By just so I don't forget to say this, for me, my focus and my message to you is we have a reason, I think, to also be a little bit more optimistic. We haven't solved everything. Terrible things are happening. There's still hostages in Gaza. There's still battles. Soldiers are being killed. There's starving people in Gaza. There's some, really extreme right-wing settlers that are doing terrible things. Yes, terrible things in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, that they shouldn't be doing. And we should be strongly saying that it's not Jewish to do this to people that live within us, right? And to no one, right? But we just survived. We just survived. Like Am Yisrael Chai, that's not a joke. And Am hanetzach lo mefached miderech aruka is not just a saying, right? The eternal people are not afraid of a long journey. The photos I took here, the one on the left from a few years ago after a forest near my house here in the Jerusalem JNF forest, that's my wife standing there. Even after destruction, you can rise again, right? Like a lion rising, right? One of the names of a rising lion, one of the names of the 12-day war. And the picture on the right is at the Timna Valley near Eilat. Also, I took it early morning. There is hope. We have to remember the past, live the present, have hope for the future, says Abba Kovner, a survivor of the Holocaust. And it's true that there's still a lot of issues going on. I want you to hear a little bit of what's happening in Israeli society. We're in a different place than we were before the Iranian preemptive attack and then part of the war. So a couple of years ago, Israeli society felt totally different. It's not 100% good. It's probably not even 80% good yet, but we're going there. More flights are coming back to Israel. People are starting to understand that this is going to take a long time. We're not done with Iran. They're not going to become lovers of Israel. And we don't want wars. And we want to find the solution after the war, what kind of agreements we can make. But we'll go step by step. And hopefully we'll start making good decisions and move together as one people. And we should learn how to agree to disagree about things, because 70 or 75% of the Israelis can agree on a lot of different things. And then there's people on the far right and far left, but I feel like a lot of us can agree about a lot of different things. How to do that, I wish I had the answers. But before I continue talking, I just want to address some of the things you may have written. First of all, I want to read David's comment. David, I don't want to forget. So first we'll read David. Shalom uvracha. I'm hoping that in addition to discussing the Iran war, you might discuss the developments in Gaza, food distribution or collection sites, and the conflicts between settlers and IDF in the West Bank, which is very worrying. Let me start with the West Bank. The West Bank, Judea, Samaria has, we have hundreds of thousands of settlers or Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria and in East Jerusalem. The vast majority of them are people that you could sit down and have a hummus with or have a coffee with and agree about some things, disagree about the others. A lot of these people are the ones serving in the elite units in the army who really care about Israel, who really care about Achdut Israel, about the unity of Israel. And then there's some of them that are, and I do believe it's some of them, we're not talking about thousands of thousands, but these are extremists and mostly young people. And I blame their parents and I blame their rabbis and their spiritual leaders. They're giving them the wrong message. And they're trying to do all these revenge attacks and retaliate against anything that happens in Gaza or in Iran or whatever, in the Arab village near them. And they'll go and cut down trees or even harm people and burn houses. Like, these are Jews with kippahs on their head. What's Jewish about that? My complaint is not only to them, they need to be put in prison. And the new youngsters need to have good leaders, rabbis, too, from their communities that will teach them a good lesson of morality and what Judaism should be like, should strive to be like. But also, as a government, as a police and army that's trying to enforce this, we have to yad chazakah. You know what that means? Yad chazakah, just like Mitzrayim did to us, the Egyptians, right? With a strong hand. You cannot be soft with people that are acting with these kinds of acts. It also deflects, right? They say, oh, the Jews are doing this too. Yes, they're Jewish. They're not my friends. I'm responsible for them, but they're not. I don't want my girls to grow up like this. I hope you got the message in that in short. The second thing, David, just a little comment about what's going on in Gaza. The short comment is we could have a whole hour and a half about Gaza, but there still are a lot of soldiers in Gaza. A big part of Gaza is destroyed. Hamas is still underground in tunnels and in some of the remaining hospitals and in schools. Hamas is an idea. Even if we kill more and more Hamasniks, we got all the heads of the Hamas, right? All the big ones, all the big commanders. And this is my opinion, okay? So you could agree or disagree, but right? I don't think we're going to get every one of the Hamasniks. After we understand that we're going to have, we're going to make sure that they understood the message. And then when we end the war, we have to have a strategy to end the war. That's my opinion. And we have to end the war as soon as possible, coming out from there and making sure that we're still strong against terrorism, maybe expel if we can, as part of the agreement, the leaders of Hamas. But also, we have to make sure that we're strong on our borders and that we're awake and we're listening to what we've learned from the messages of October 7th, that when someone threatens you, they actually mean it and they're actually planning to do this again. How do we change, the mishtal, the regime in Gaza? I don't know. There's no easy answer to that, but I'm hoping some good people are thinking about that. And it has to, first of all, come from the Gaza people. Obviously, that's not an easy thing to do. Let's stop with Gaza right now because I do have another comment and there's so much more to say. I hope I touched a little bit of your questions. I'm sorry I can't do it all. I do want to, there was another, Bonnie, should we believe that IDF is killing people during food distribution and that propaganda? No, please don't believe that. And I'm telling you not because I'm there every day inside the Gaza Strip, but because I served in the Israeli army all the way until age 40. And I met generals and I met soldiers that are corporals and I met the privates. And I know my nephews that have been in there for so many months already from the beginning of the war. some of them more than 250 days. And I know the morality of the Israeli forces. If Hamas is shooting people that are coming to take food from those centers and trying to sell the world a picture and ourselves too, we have to check every complaint, okay? And we have to look at the videos later on that we see, and we have to listen to all the views. So I can't be responsible for every soldier in the army. The army that I know does not do that. The army that I know is protecting right now. My nephew is protecting the people of Gaza they're terrified of Hamas when they come and get from these American centers. This is American company that's distributing food in 4 different places throughout the Gaza Strip to hundreds of thousands of people. I'm not saying their life is good, but this is free food that they're getting. They have a terrible life ever since October 7th. And Hamas doesn't seem to care too much about them. It's using them. It's even shooting them sometimes to make sure that they don't come to these centers. Hamas wants to be in charge and even steals control of those trucks coming in from Rafah with food and supplies, because that's how we could gain more money by selling this to the population and more support from the people of Gaza. My short answer, don't believe that. But ask more people. Don't ask me. Don't ask only me. But that's my answer. I know what the IDF is about. I want to end with one more thing, Rabbi. Do I have 2 minutes?
Yeah, you can. I was just going to say, go ahead.
Okay, one last thing, because I've been getting my voice ready. I hope your voice is ready as well. Okay, let's do this. Here we go. אבל חבר'ה, חברים, חברות, you gotta join me. My voice is after an hour of a presentation, okay? So even if I can't
Everyone,
hear
you can unmute yourselves if you like. Okay,
you
go
can't.
ahead.
There'll be a delay, but you could still do it. Here we
You put your
go.
musician on. You're
I'm
going
gonna
to
sing it one time, and then you can join me. עם הנצח לא מפחד, לא מפחד מדרך ארוכה. The eternal people are not afraid, of the long journey. Lai, 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 lai. עכשיו כולם, everyone, here we go. עם ישראל חי, עם ישראל חי, עם ישראל
Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael,
עם ישראל חי,
Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Beautiful. I don't know if anybody wants to make a comment or we just got to go ahead, Alana.
היי משה, מה שלומך?
היי לנה, שלום.
דרישת שלום מדני.
Thank you.
I would like to know if Israel has an organized plan by number 1, number 2, number da. What is the plan for the hopefully near future? What's going to be first? It seems like they're doing many things together, and they're not finished with these activities. Is there a plan?
I
And
believe,
also, sorry, what do you think about the fighting the anti-Semitism in America? How
How are
okay,
Israelis seeing that? How do I feel about? I'll talk about that for a second. Yeah, but let's start with what's Israel doing? Are they prioritizing it? There's a lot of things going on. If I'm understanding you correctly,
what
there's
are the things? What are the things?
Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, hostages, Netanyahu, his trial, elections. What's going on?
Mm.
Honestly, I wish I knew, the answer. I do want to believe that the fact that we don't hear about things publicly about hostages doesn't always mean that they're not happening in the background. I think there's teams of people that are working on different things. Witkoff is also working on a lot of different things. Where's the priorities? But I think a lot of these things are connected to each other. That's how I understand them, right? I'm not a politician, but I understand that because of what happened with Iran, that sponsors Hamas for so many years, we have a moment in history. Hezbollah didn't shoot one missile at us, right? During this. The Houthis, almost no missiles. Something in history is changing here because of this Iran thing. I'm hoping that this whole puzzle comes together. What's going to happen first, I don't know. I think that Bibi coming to Washington on Sunday and meeting Trump, they're going to be trying to finalize something. He's not coming there for some tea with the president. They're talking about different things, right? President needs to show his accomplishments, right? He has his own goals. But I'm hoping that all these things are connected and they're all going to start being addressed. I don't always trust the government 100%. No government, but so we have to ask these questions. But I want to believe that they're thinking about the full picture. I hope that answers a little bit regarding anti-Semitism. Israelis are getting it more and more because I have to say in Israel, they have a lot of programs on TV in the past year and 9 months or almost 10 months from the beginning of the year of what happened in Colombia and all these Ivy Leagues. And people are traveling to the States and talking to their relatives, and they're hearing about the feel, not only in the States, but we're going at the end of this summer, I hope, to Norway. Is Norway for a vacation? Is Norway a really great place to go right now, especially in the city of Oslo and Bergen? There's a lot of immigrants there that are not exactly pro-Israel. A lot of Norwegian people themselves that are, I'm putting it in very mild terms, are very pro-Palestinians, but also sometimes even anti-Semitic. We're worried about it, but what it makes me understand is how we're connected. Anti-Semitism is not only about, it's not only about the Israelis, it's about Jews all over the world, and we're all connected. And we could feel your support. I got 100 phone calls and texts a day during the war with Iran. So we feel connected, and I think this is also a message that we are Am Echad, and we see you as well and what you guys have been going through in America in the past year and 9 months.
תודה.
Appreciate it.
תודה לכם.
Anybody else
Thank
want
you,
to?
Rabbi, for this opportunity.
You got it. Moshe, just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone. We watch the news, we watch it closely, and what you've given us is really the very personal connection to that, and that is so important, and we really, really appreciate it. Appreciate the time. I look forward to quiet summer. I'll be there myself in a week, God willing. So I'll be
רגע, מתי אתה נוסע?
עוד שבוע, one more week.
אני ביום ראשון, אז
Okay, good. We'll talk.
Amazing.
All
Nesiya
right.
tova. Thank you,
Toda rabah.
everyone. Have a great day.
Be well, everyone. And thank you. Marlene Herman's going to take over my Tuesday class for the summer. So she's going to be doing stuff on Tuesdays. We'll keep you posted with the announcements. Moshe Gold. Toda rabah.
להתראות.
See you all.
תודה רבה.
שלום לכולם. ביי ביי.